All right, on this episode of True Loss Stories, we're going to talk about hiding cryptocurrency thumb drives in a divorce. Who gets them? How do you get them? Where do you find them? What do you do with it? Millions of dollars possibly lost. The craziest thing Paul Phipps, divorce attorney, has ever seen in a divorce. Paul, say hi. Awesome. And we're going to talk about a pantless DUI pushing a car and how Paul just separates himself from all of this. Paul Phipps is with NLG. We'll put a link to that in the show notes. But before we get started, one of the best ways to promote your business, to promote your law firm, is through your video case stories. Go to videocasestory.com. We'll help you create a strategy for YouTube, Facebook, and to collect, craft, and deliver those stories. All right, let's get started. Before we get into, we're going to talk about pants down DUI, possibly, and a few other crazy crypto stories with divorce and crypto. But before we get into that, Paul, tell me a little bit about yourself and the firm.
I work at NLG. I'm a partner at NLG, and we do exclusively family law. So family law, divorce, paternity, generally high assets, but we do have a myriad of different clients. But that's our thing. I learned a long time ago you can do one thing very well, or you can do a lot of things not so well. So I've chosen to do one thing very well, and NLG also takes that. So those are the types of cases we do, and that's what we do. We would like to say maybe a boutique or a specialty firm in family law.
And what drew you to family law? It's a crazy
yeah,
field.
Well, it's interesting. I think for years when I left JP Morgan, I wanted to hang up my own shingle, and just so many family law cases. There was such an incredible high rate of divorce. And, as time goes on, not even divorce, paternity cases. A lot of people don't think marriage is a thing these days. So you have paternity, and then people have children together. And once they're no longer in love, it becomes a problem, and somebody has to figure all this out. So so many people started coming in. I did a lot of the cases. I started to enjoy it. A family law attorney is in court weekly. I mean, a lot of people that are attorneys do not visit the courtroom with a lot of frequency, but I can tell you anybody that is a full-time family law attorney goes to court at least once a week, often several times a week.
Interesting. And what, was there a moment or a case that you're like, I really love family law?
Oh, to contribute in some way. We like to feel good. There's an innate desire to do something good or positive. And, a lot of times this is people's most emotional experience that they're going to go through in their life. So at the end, for someone to say, wow, this you did a great job, and you were really calming to me, and this really worked out the way you said it was going to, it just gives me some internal satisfaction. And I think that's what drives me. I really strive to manage my clients' expectations and then to do a good job for them. I mean, I litigate as if they're my children, as if they're my assets. And a very important quality of a family law lawyer, if anyone's looking for one, is the lawyer has to be able to separate themselves from the case. You want them to argue like it's their stuff, but they can't take it home, because I think that makes them an ineffective lawyer. You have to have some degree of separation and logic. So you deal with lawyers, we make long answers. The short answer is I just feel a lot of satisfaction when I can see I can help a family, whether it be through settlement or through litigation. And I feel like I've done some good in the world for kids or people.
Yes, that's great. That's awesome. So tell me a little bit about this crypto case, because obviously crypto's hot, and who gets the crypto and where is it? It's strange.
So with divorce, one of the major things is people have stuff, right? So they're married, they're now a team, and they're gathering stuff. And the longer they're together, the more stuff they gather. That can be debts, it can be assets. With the advent of cryptocurrency, it can create a problem. There was a case, it wasn't in this state, but these couple had decided that they were going to invest in crypto. And they did the research, and they said, the best way to keep the crypto safe is to just put it on a thumb drive. I'm not an expert on crypto, but from what I understand, when it's on a thumb drive, if you don't have the thumb drive, your money is gone. So in this particular case, they allegedly had 1.5 million or so in this crypto on a thumb drive. That's the only place this money was. And both parties said, I don't have it. He doesn't have it. Husband doesn't have it. Wife doesn't have it. When they went to court, the court has to rule on competent and substantial evidence. So there was really no actual evidence that this crypto even existed. There was nothing tangible, nothing to point at, nothing to direct to be confiscated or transferred. So essentially, with the crypto, that just remained in limbo. Whoever had it, or even worse, maybe it got run over by a truck or thrown in the trash. I don't know.
That's crazy. That's so scary. And it's like millions of dollars. I've heard so many stories of that. Like someone, millions of dollars and got thrown out, and like they're digging through a dump. I think they're still doing it, right? Trying to find that millions of dollars. It's like a treasure hunt. And so, I mean, there's no, not only is there no, you can't separate it, but you can't count it towards the assets, can you?
Well,
if you don't
that's
have
the
it.
thing. Big tricks. I shouldn't call it a trick, but if you have a good family law attorney, the main thing is you've got to uncover the assets. You got to get a hold of all that stuff. You got to get concrete proof of where it is, how much it is, where it's people. People do some pretty shady things to hide assets, right? Especially when they have a lot of money. So the art is in digging up and identifying those assets and proving where they are and accessing them. And that, in the case of the crypto, I'm not smart enough to figure that out, but hopefully someday I will be. It's on the cutting edge, I believe.
I don't know. It's crazy. I mean, that's what pretty much cryptocurrency was designed for, was to hide it and hide it from the government. But, it's supposed to be this democratization. But I really, if you look at who's really using it, it's for stuff like this. And that's got to be so frustrating, too. If you knew your spouse has millions of dollars and they're just like, pff,
yeah,
gone.
well, retail. I mean, people get married and they intend to marry forever, but if you do any type of Google search, you can see there's a pretty high rate of divorce. So, I mean, if you've got a substantial amount of money, that may be something to think about. Do you want to dump it into crypto and put it on a thumb drive that if you physically lose that, it's vanished, right?
Yeah. I didn't ask you this before, but I want to know, what's the craziest thing you've ever seen people fight over in a divorce?
Sometimes it's hard to believe that people actually loved each other at some point in time. I mean, people, and it's not only divorce, people break up. You see on the news and TV, a lot of salacious stories come from breakups. People are passionate and jilted lovers. I mean, people fight over anything and everything. Often pets can become a heated topic that is, at least in the state of Florida, pets are what we call chattel, which is an old English word for property. So it's just the same as a lamp or a table or a car. So, people will fight tooth and nail over the smallest things. And it's sometimes.
It is. And I can only imagine the things that you've seen, because you see people at their worst. And that's why, I've worked with so many divorce attorneys over the years. And it's funny because, it's not funny to my wife, but because I got started working with, we're both, worked in Long Island, and I got started working with divorce attorneys there, and we'd be talking about how hard the cases were, how expensive, how much they battled, and my wife and I were dating at the time, and I'm like, I'm not sure I ever want to get married.
Said about things that are sentimental, right? Maybe something has a specific meaning to somebody, and to you and I or the casual observer, it makes no sense why someone would fight over it. But everybody has their own passions and their own reason for things. But yes, I do have a lot of clients after they get divorced say, I'm never getting married again.
I don't blame them. And so, obviously you focus on family law. That's awesome, because it's like everything's changing so much, and there's just so much nuance to it. And also, you're a counselor too. You're not just dealing with the law. You're dealing with people and their emotions. But you were talking about a DUI case you were once involved with, and I think this is crazy. And when I first heard about this, I'm like, no way. But I mean, once again, you hear everything. So tell me a little bit about this pantsless DUI.
There was it actually made the news. So an individual was arrested for DUI, and the arrest was made because he was outside of the vehicle trying to push the vehicle. I think the vehicle had actually broken down or was inoperable. And as he was pushing, his pants had slipped down and caused him to trip and fall. So if you can get a visual of that, an officer had driven by and seen this. I can't opine on what the officer was thinking, but that ended up resulting in an arrest. and I'm not a criminal law expert by any stretch. This was years ago, but the basic premise is the state has to prove that someone is in control of a motor vehicle, an operable motor vehicle. At least that was the rule back then. So it became quite an interesting discussion as far as, did that person actually violate any laws other than maybe public decency, but there was no charge for that.
Yeah, I mean, because like you said before when we were talking about it, it's you're in control of the vehicle. And it's funny, I remember when you first said that's a debate, and also can you still call it pulling them over?
Yeah, of course. I don't do criminal defense, and that was like a one-off thing. But everybody's got a tough job out there. I mean, they're trying to keep people safe, right? And I think anybody, if you saw something out of the ordinary like that, you would definitely inquire. And if law enforcement it sees it, they're certainly going to inquire. But yeah, very unique set of circumstances.
That's crazy. Yeah, you never. I mean, because you think I've heard of people getting DUIs for in all sorts of asleep in their car with their keys in the ignition, right? And getting the DUI, and that is not a cool thing. But who would have thought it? Wow, that's crazy. And so as you're doing all of this, and like you said, you separate your emotions. You don't bring it home. How do you do that? How do you physically, mentally do that? Is it just do you turn it off? Do you compartmentalize it? Is it a lot of meditation? Are you running? I saw you're doing the races. I saw the picture of you on your website. It looks like a Tough Mudder or something like that. How are you separating it?
Two answers. One, for my own mental health, I try to exercise pretty regularly, not only mental health, but physical health. I think that's super important. Being an attorney is a pretty stressful job, and a family law attorney, you're dealing with people's emotions all day. I think the mental part, as far as separating myself from my clients' cases at the end of the day, is I need to do the best for my clients, and I need to provide them the best representation. And if I am overly vested and I am over-consumed and I lose my objectivity and I lose that logical edge, I think I would be doing a disservice to my clients. So number one, it's important to be the best advocate I can be. And I think I need that separation in order to do that. The other part is I have to have a life. I mean, these folks are going through arguably the most emotional and stressful, one of the most emotional and stressful times in their lives. And, I pride myself on trying to be the beacon of calmness and hope, and, try to give them a certain level of energy to help bring them down. So I think it's really grounded in my obligation to my clients and my passion to do a good job. And I think it's a necessity. As I said earlier, I can't remember if we were recording or not, but if you start bringing this home and I get home and I eat dinner and all I'm thinking about are these cases and I'm doing it 24/7, I think I lose my efficacy as an advocate, as a counselor, and as a litigator.
100%. And but we dragged you on the show to make you relive it all. Well, this has been awesome, Paul. Thank you so much for being on True Law Stories. We'll put a link to, if you're in Tampa and you're going, unfortunately, through a divorce, make sure to check Paul out. We'll put a link to the website in the show notes. And Paul, are you active on social media? Is there someplace that people should follow you there?
I should have been prepared for this, but we're there's an NLG website, and I think I am _ the bearded on Instagram, I think.
I don't know where you came up with that name. So we'll put links to all that in the show notes. Paul, thank you so much for being on True Law Stories.
Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed it.
And thank you all for listening to Paul and I. This has been Iron Garlic and True Law Stories.